Hey everybody, welcome into a very special episode of Husker Women's Wednesday, powered by Emeritus. I'm Jessica Coody, and special guest for you here. Very excited to be chatting with Kristen Brown, the senior woman administrator here at Nebraska, deputy AD, who is a very busy woman. But thank you so much for spending some time with us.
No, thanks for having me. I know we've been trying to do this for a while, so it's good that things have finally settled down a bit, I think, and we can finally make this happen.
Well, in July, it was a year. How would you describe the last year?
Well, I got here probably 2 weeks before fall sports reported, so I feel like I've been running a million miles an hour ever since then. But finally got through the year, settled in a little bit, got settled in at home, and actually got some things put up on the walls and packing boxes or moving boxes and packing paper out of my garage. And got settled in at home, and then definitely feeling a lot more settled in at work now. But things have been great.
Lots to get into with you here today, but going back to that first year, what have you learned here in this last year?
Yeah, not that it was a surprise, but just the people. The people have been phenomenal, welcoming me, welcoming my extended family whenever they've come out to visit. People within the department, everybody has been super helpful, super welcoming. People want to be supportive and want to make sure that you are successful in your role. So people have been phenomenal. And then obviously we see how that translates into support of our teams and our programs. And again, wasn't a surprise, but just seeing the level of passion and support for our student athletes and particularly our women's sports has been really, really awesome to see.
Well, just coming out yesterday, the news that you have been selected to serve on the NCAA Division I Women's Basketball Committee. Tell us about that process, why you were interested in it, and how you ended up being one of the ones selected.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a full circle moment for me, being a basketball student athlete myself. And I think from the time that I knew that the women's basketball or basketball committee was a thing, I wanted to be on it. So here I am, 20 plus years later in the industry, and finally have an opportunity to be on it. But in terms of the process and how, the Big Ten every year solicits nominees from each of its member schools for all of the committee vacancies that the Big Ten is eligible to appoint someone to. And so we had our internal process to kind of figure out who and what would match with the vacancies, and one of those was women's basketball, which I obviously had an interest in. So filled out the application for it, and then the Big Ten has a committee that picks from all the different nominees or potential nominees from the schools. And so I was picked as one of the Big Ten nominees, and then that goes to the NCAA, which has a nominating committee that ultimately selects who gets on each committee.
So, with Troy being on, the college football playoff, and you're on this committee, how important is that? What's the value of that to have representatives in these kinds of rooms?
Yeah, I mean, for us individually, it's certainly a professional goal. But I think it shows just leadership. Nebraska wants to be at the table and be in these positions of leadership, whether that's football, whether that's women's basketball. Our faculty rep, Dr. Fuse, is on one of the academic committees with the NCAA. So I think it just shows that Nebraska is going to have a presence nationally, and we're going to have a seat at the table for all of these important things that are happening in the industry.
You said you wanted to be a part of this. Why? Why was this an interest for you to be on this committee?
Yeah, basketball has been great to me. I've played it since I was a kid. It has opened doors for me all throughout my life. I was, like I mentioned, a basketball student athlete, so got a scholarship to play basketball. Basketball has allowed me to travel across the country and across the world in some instances. And so I feel like I have an obligation to give back to the game. And I can't do that through coaching because that's not my path, but this was my way that I could give back to the game.
How, and in terms of just when you start talking about the postseason, I know the season hasn't even started yet, but the Big Ten Conference and women's basketball, it's in a really healthy state at this point going into the season, right?
Yeah, Big Ten basketball, you could argue, is the best conference in the league, and just the depth from top to bottom is so good, and there's no easy games night in and night out, which is very different from back. So I started my career at the Big Ten office, and I think at that point in time, there are maybe 2 schools in the league that you could say, okay, one of those 2 schools are going to win the conference every year. One of those 2 schools might get to a Final Four. Now there are multiple schools that can win the league. Now there are multiple schools that can get to a Final Four. So just in that, 20-year time span, just to see the growth and the depth of Big Ten women's basketball, it's awesome. It's awesome to see somebody who played the game, but then also somebody who's a part of Big Ten basketball now.
So part of your roles, you're the sport administrator for both volleyball and women's basketball. So since we're talking about basketball, let's start there with Amy Williams. What's it been like working with her and that program?
Yeah, Amy is great. And, I love the fact that she went to school here, she played here, she is passionate about the University of Nebraska. She is passionate about the culture that she builds within her team. I've never had more fun traveling with a team than with women's basketball, just because the culture of that program is so right. Unfortunately, had a couple of injuries last year that kind of dampened the success that I know they were hoping to have, but have a really, really good roster returning and brought in some good transfers and some first-year kids. And so it'll be fun. It will be a really, really good season. You never want to wish time away, but I am anxious to get to hoop season for a lot of reasons now, but for that in particular, because I think they're going to have a special season.
They've been killing it on the recruiting trail, too.
They have, and I don't know, compliance might get mad at me for saying this, but there's one more big fish out there that I know they're hoping to reel in, but a really, really good recruiting class, some kids that I know that they put a lot of time in over the years, not just the last couple of years, but a lot of kids that they put a lot of time in. And really, really excited for that class to get here. Obviously, a lot needs to happen between now and then, but no, the future is certainly bright for women's basketball.
So you were working with volleyball. You're a part of the secretive things going on behind the scenes from John Cook to Dani, Busboom, Kelly. But what has it been like working with Dani? What have you learned from her? What makes her such an elite volleyball coach?
Yeah, she's awesome. And again, similar to Amy, somebody who played here, knows what it's like to bleed scarlet and cream. She's had success as a player, as an assistant, as a head coach. I think Troy said it in some of his remarks that even if she didn't play here, she was the right choice for all of the things that she's done from a coaching standpoint. But she is competitive as they get. She's as transparent, I think, as they get. I think she has a way of connecting with the student athletes in a way that you want your head coach to be able to connect with the student athletes, and she gets the most out of them. And I think I said this in my remarks about her. You could tell in the way that Louisville, her student athletes there, played for her, and you could just tell the relationship that she had with them because of the way that they played for her. And you can see that now. I think we've all seen. I mean, the team is 6-0 right now and ranked #1 in the country. But you see that the joy in which they play, the effort in which they play. I think you can attribute that all back to Dani and just the relationships that she's built with them and how she gets the most out of them.
So Dani, Amy, Heather Brink, Rhonda Ravel. How special is that? The four women that lead those programs are all former student athletes here.
It's awesome. I try to think back across my career, whether it's schools that I've worked at or other schools that I have some familiarity of. And I don't know if there's another school in the country that can say that they have 4 female head coaches who were also former student athletes. And again, it just goes back to Nebraska, the leaders that we build here, the way that we invest in our student athletes, that they're now elevating to these important roles like coaches.
So, I mean, you have a lot of experience with a lot of different programs, but being embedded with this volleyball program, what have been your takeaways that you've learned that this program has been able to maintain such success and high level standards year in and year out? It's just in this day and age in college athletics to have a program that's sustained that much success for the length that it has. What have you learned about that and why that's been the case?
Yeah, and I think you said it. It's number one, it's the foundation that you set as a head coach, and there've obviously been great head coaches that have come before Dani. But it's the standard that those head coaches have set. And the standard is the standard. And no matter who's the head coach of the program, no matter who the student athletes are in the program, we know that this is the standard of Nebraska volleyball, and we're going to achieve that every single day. And I've seen or worked with programs before who maybe have gone to a Final Four, and then you never see them on the national scene again. And it's because, A, that foundation isn't there, but then the standards, you reach that, and then it's like, oh, we can, relax a little bit because we reached the mountaintop of our sport. Where I think Nebraska has done an incredible job of not only laying that foundation, but continually setting the standard and not letting anyone not meet that standard.
Another fun task that you've been tasked with here recently is the implementation of a John Cook statue. What's that like? Just designing a statue and getting a statue here?
Yeah, so I think Troy teased this back at his retirement press conference that there were going to be some things happening down the road to honor Coach Cook and his legacy. And so the statue is an incredible honor and probably the least that we could do to recognize and honor his legacy, and then obviously the naming of John Cook Arena. I will say that I have not been directly involved with the design of the statue. I gave some ideas of what I thought it should look like. I am hopeful that we do not have a Cristiano Ronaldo situation where the statue comes out looking like somebody totally different. But no, trust the individual who's putting together the statue, and I'm really excited to see it, and excited for Coach and his family to have this opportunity to celebrate him and his legacy and everything that he's done, not just for Nebraska and not just for volleyball, but just for women's sports across not just the country but the world. He's had such an incredible impact, and it is such a fitting honor for all of these things to be happening, and excited to celebrate that next week.
I love that. And not just that, but just what can you say about the way that he handed things over to Dani? I mean, he's got this team coming back, a really special group. He could have stuck around for this year and maybe won a national title, but the fact that he wanted to hand it over to Dani in the state that it was.
Yeah, I think it says or speaks to the fact of how comfortable he was with his career and content with what he's done. And it says a lot because, like you said, he could have come back and been a national championship contender for the next several years, you could argue, knowing what we have coming in. But I think it just speaks to, he was content with what he's done, with the legacy that he's left. He knew he was leaving it in great hands and handing the reins over to Dani. I think he knew deep down that these kids would love Dani as much as they loved him. And so I think that made it, I don't want to say easy for him to hand over the reins, but I do think he could feel comfortable handing things over because he knew who he was handing it over to.
I know for everybody, it's been a work in progress. You've had to learn as you go with this new age of college athletics. What's that been like for you? How have you been able to kind of get yourself ready for this new age of college athletics?
I don't know if anybody could say that they got themselves ready, but no, it's just trying to stay on top of everything that's happening. And some weeks it feels like things are changing by the day or by the hour, but it's just trying to stay on top of all of the changes. And just trying to make the best decisions that you can with the information that you have. But it's been a lot these last, even just going back to COVID, because that was the same time where legislation changed with NIL right around when COVID happened. So just the last 4 years, just trying to stay up on everything that's happening, but then also trying your best to project things that could be happening. It's a lot, but it's a lot of fun. And I enjoy the challenge of trying to navigate it all and figure it out and hopefully set our coaches up for success.
So you talked earlier, you're a student athlete, and that coaching wasn't for you. Why did you choose this career path in athletic administration?
Yeah, it honestly was by accident. So wanted to coach, thought I was going to be the next Pat Summitt, right?
Oh, I love that. Big Pat Summitt fan over here.
Yes, same. I had a lot of Tennessee orange, we won't talk about that other orange, in my closet growing up because I thought that's what I was going to do. Got through college my senior year, ended up retiring early because of knee surgeries, had my third knee surgery, so interned in our athletic department at the time, and had a couple people in the department who said, I think you should really think about administration. I was like, no, you don't understand. Like, coaching is my path. And then my mom actually was the one who was like, I think there's a little bit more stability in administration. Maybe you should think about that. And so had a couple of opportunities, GA opportunities, that I actually ended up turning down, which those head coaches ended up getting fired that year. And so there was an opportunity that opened up at the Big Ten Conference. It was a championships intern position. And what got me about the job description is that it said you had the opportunity to work the men's and women's basketball tournaments. I was like, that's how I'll get my foot in the door for coaching. So long story short, got the internship, and about a month into the internship, I was sitting in an administrator meeting, people who are in my role now, and I remember sitting around the table looking at these people, and I was like, this is what I want to do. You can have an impact on sport, you can have an impact on young people, which that's what was important to me, and you didn't necessarily have to coach. And so at that moment, I was like, admin is what I want to do. This is the path I want to take, and haven't really thought about coaching since.
Wow. So when you go back to a little over a year ago, and you were talking to Troy and about coming to Nebraska, what intrigued you about coming here and interests you here at Nebraska?
Yeah, if there's anything that I've learned in life, who you work for matters. And so just talking to Troy, getting to know him throughout the process, had a little bit of a relationship with both Haven Fields, who's another deputy AD, as well as Seth Dorsey, who's another deputy who we worked together at Texas A&M. And just talking to the three of them throughout the process, realized that I'm going to be working with great people. The role that Troy and I talked about this being and the impact that he wanted it to have, that of course was of importance to me. Being at a place like Nebraska where people truly care about sport was important to me. And then honestly, being back in the Big Ten. That's where I started my career. I spent some time at another Big Ten institution, but we won't talk about. And so being back in the Big Ten, being closer to family, all those things played a role in the decision to come here.
You're everywhere. I see you everywhere. And even I think Haven was joking about that. You were at football practice the other day, which you said I try to go out at least once a week, and that's not your sport, but and I know you do that with other sports as well. Why has that been important for you to be there, and not just at games, but at practices as well?
Yeah, I mean, I want our student athletes to know that the administration supports them, and that support doesn't just look like what it is on game day. It's every day. It's in training table. It's in practice. It's out on the road when I have the opportunity to travel with them. It's at Target when I see them out shopping. Like, I am here to support them in whatever way possible. I also know that as somebody who was a student athlete, particularly a female and someone of color, being able to see someone who looked like me in a leadership position was important because I had that. And so I want our student athletes to be able to see that of me. So I think it's just, the importance of being visible, being around, knowing that, I'm accessible, like I'm not, the big bad wolf up in, the principal's office upstairs. But just wanting to have those relationships with student athletes and just know that I'm a resource for them and I'm here to support them in any way possible.
I love that. You talked about just the wanting to make an impact and being a student athlete yourself. What is it meant to you to see just the impact, the interest, the care of women's sports here at Nebraska? Not just the volleyball program, but so many. You just see attendance records. You see people at every single sporting event, number 2 in attendance in the nation. What does that mean to you as a senior woman administrator here?
Yeah, it's special. It really is special. Knowing that we were either 1 or 2 in the country the last 2 years in terms of women's sport attendance means a lot. I was a student athlete 20 plus years ago, and knowing what, our games look like at, NIU, looking at the few TV games that were on across the country at that point in time. It's awesome to see, and I really hope that our student athletes, in particular our female student athletes, understand that just how special a place like Nebraska is, where volleyball, women's basketball, softball, soccer, you name it, there's support across the board, and there are filled arenas and packed arenas. When we go on the road, the way that our fans travel to support us on the road. Like, that doesn't happen everywhere, so I hope our student athletes can truly grasp that there is no place like Nebraska, truly, and that it really is special.
And the TV viewership numbers, it's just crazy. What excites you? This is the best time to be a female in sports right now, but what excites you about the future of women's sports?
That there's still so much more room to grow. Mm-hmm. And I really honestly believe that we are just scratching the surface. And we all saw the TV numbers, I think 1.2 for the Kentucky match. We set another TV record for the AVCA showcase a couple weekends ago. And I think this is just the start, and Nebraska is setting the standard, and hopefully everyone else is raising their level. But I really do believe that this is just the beginning of the explosion of women's sports.
And how confident are you in just the position of Nebraska with multiple sports moving forward in this new age of college athletics?
Yeah, Nebraska is positioned well for whatever happens in the future. Fan support, resources, dollars, being in the Big Ten, all of us, the leadership up at the top with Troy, all of that puts us in the best position to have success no matter what the landscape looks like in the next 5, 10, 15 years.
So I always like to ask a couple of the same questions on this podcast. Who were some of your female women role models growing up? You talked about Pat Summitt, but who else really inspired you?
Yeah, obviously Pat Summitt. My mom, who never had the opportunity to play competitive sport, was an athlete, so I think that's where I get my competitive nature from. Andrea Williams, who at the time when we first met was the overseer of women's basketball in the Big Ten. She is now the athletic director at the University of Illinois, Chicago, but has been a big sister, a mentor, and a great friend all throughout my career path. Dawn Staley, a point guard, from point guard to point guard. She's somebody who I've always looked at going back to when I was a young basketball player who, A, loved the way that she played the game, but B, just loved and respected her leadership. And I think you see that now in the way that she leads her program. And then I have some friends in the industry who have been amazing, whether that's Tiffany Daniels at the SEC office, Carla Williams, who's the athletic director at UVA, Candace Lee, who's the AD at Vanderbilt, who's also on the women's basketball committee. Just phenomenal women who have been incredible examples, leaders, friends, and mentors to me.
Oh, I love that. So as a point guard, how much do you love Britt Prince's game?
I think I could teach her a thing or two. No, Britt, just kidding. No, I love point guard play, good point guard play. And I mean, she has all of the tools necessary to be a great player, not just in this league, but across the country. And again, I think she just kind of scratched the surface of what she can do. And so looking for big things for Britt.
Okay, last thing I like to get from whoever sits on this podcast is just what advice would you pass along to someone that might be inspired by you that wants to maybe pursue a career like you have? What kind of advice would you pass along?
Yeah, number one, just be a good human. I think people want to help people who put good energy and who are a good human, and I feel like I am a product of people who have wanted to help me all throughout my career. And so I think part of that is because I've been a good human and have tried to do things the right way, treat people the right way, and work hard. And I think just put your dreams and your goals out there. The NCAA Women's Basketball Committee, that was a dream and a goal that I wasn't shy about stating all along my path. And I'd like to think that somebody heard me as I was vocal about that and helped to make that happen. So put your dreams, your goals out there because there are people that do genuinely want to help you achieve those things. And I've been lucky to have some folks along my path who have wanted those things for me.
Oh, fantastic stuff. Thank you so much for being here. Love chatting with you and love running into you. So I'm glad we could have this conversation.
Likewise. Thank you for having me.
Kristen Brown, the Deputy AD and Senior Woman Administrator here at Nebraska, here as a part of our Husker Women's Wednesday podcast. Emeritus is proud to power this podcast and all of Husker women's sports. Thanks for listening and watching.